TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, and also One Love 83 and Gabby Mathis. Thank you so much for gifting memberships. We appreciate you guys. So Joe Biden's about to speak. He just put out a letter over the weekend, stepping down from the campaign, but not from the presidency, obviously. And I assume that he's going to give clarifying remarks and an exit speech here in terms of the campaign, at least. And I'm sure that he will have glowing things to say about Kamala Harris. It is a little strange because it is past 8 p.m. and hence this is when Joe Biden would normally shut down. But according to him, not according to me. But anyways, we don't have to get into that again because Joe Biden did the right thing. And that's what I'm gonna emphasize here. And I appreciate all you guys writing in, hashtag Cenk was right, etc. That keeps coming in and you guys are wonderful and you made a giant difference, okay? But remember, today he did the right thing, so let's watch.
All right, okay. So the speech is about to start, but before we get to that, you know, it is weird that Biden announced that he's dropping out of the race via Twitter.
Super weird.
Yeah, and that we didn't hear him address anyone. We're not gonna hear him address anyone until tonight. So it was important for him to do this. I will say that I'm looking forward to being able to watch his address without my shoulders tensing up, without panicking about his foibles and his gaffes and issues speaking, because he's not the candidate anymore. And so
in all those times, again, I don't want to beat up on the guy. He did the right thing, but in all those times, he never gained a single voter. Every interview, every speech, every one, we're like, okay, how many voters is he gonna lose? How many voters is he gonna lose? So anyways, we're past it and it's a giant relief. And so thank God he did this and he's doing this. We're waiting for him. Okay, now we got it. Okay, let's watch that.
My fellow Americans, I'm speaking to you tonight from behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office. In this sacred space, I'm surrounded by portraits of extraordinary American presidents. Thomas Jefferson wrote the immortal words that guide this nation. George Washington, who showed us presidents are not kings. Abraham Lincoln, who implored us to reject malice. Franklin Roosevelt, who inspired us to reject fear. I revere this office, but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. But in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think is more important than any title. I draw strength and I find joy in working for the American people. But this sacred task of perfecting our union, it's not about me, it's about you, your families, your futures. It's about we the people. And we can never forget that. And I never have. I've made it clear that I believe America is at an inflection point. One of those rare moments in history when the decisions we make now will determine our fate of our nation and the world for decades to come. America's gonna have to choose between moving forward or backward, between hope and hate, between unity and division. We have to decide, do we still believe in honesty, decency, respect, freedom, justice, and democracy? In this moment, we can see those we disagree with not as enemies, but as fellow Americans. Can we do that? Does character in public life still matter? I believe I know the answer to these questions because I know you, the American people, and I know this. We are a great nation because we are good people. When you elected me to this office, I promised to always level with you, to tell you the truth. And the truth, the sacred cause of this country is larger than any one of us. And those of us who cherish that cause, cherish it so much, a cause of American democracy itself, must unite to protect it. You know, in recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation. You know, there is a time and a place for long years of experience in public life. There's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now. Over the next 6 months, I'll be focused on doing my job as president. That means I'll continue to lower costs for hardworking families, grow our economy. I'll keep defending our personal freedoms and our civil rights, from the right to vote to the right to choose. I'll keep calling out hate and extremism. Make it clear there is no place in America for political violence or any violence ever, period. I'm going to keep speaking out to protect our kids from gun violence, our planet from climate crisis that is the existential threat. And I will keep fighting for my cancer moonshot so we can end cancer as we know it, because we can do it. I'm going to call for Supreme Court reform because this is critical to our democracy, Supreme Court reform. You know, I will keep working to ensure America remains strong and secure and the leader of the free world. I'm the first president in this century to report to the American people that the United States is not at war anywhere in the world. We'll keep rallying a coalition of proud nations to stop Putin from taking over Ukraine and doing more damage. We'll keep NATO stronger, and I'll make it more powerful and more united than any time in all of our history. I'll keep doing the same for our allies in the Pacific. You know, when I came to office, the conventional wisdom was that China would inevitably surpass the United States. That's not the case anymore. And I'm going to keep working to end the war in Gaza, bring home all the hostages, and bring peace and security to the Middle East and end this war. We're also working around the clock to bring home Americans being unjustly detained all around the world. You know, we've come so far since my inauguration. On that day, I told you, as I stood in we stood in a winter of peril and a winter of possibilities. Peril and possibilities. We were in the grip of the worst pandemic in the century, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. But we came together as Americans, and we got through it. We emerged stronger, more prosperous, and more secure. Today, we have the strongest economy in the world, creating nearly 16 million new jobs, a record. Wages are up. Inflation continues to come down. The racial wealth gap is the lowest it's been in 20 years. We're literally rebuilding our entire nation, urban, suburban, rural, and tribal communities. Manufacturing has come back to America. We're leading the world again in chips and science and innovation. We finally beat Big Pharma after all these years to lower the cost of prescription drugs for seniors. And I'm going to keep fighting to make sure we lower the cost for everyone, not just seniors. More people have health care today in America than ever before. And I signed one of the most significant laws helping millions of veterans and their families who were exposed to toxic materials. You know, most significant climate law ever in the history of the world. The first major gun safety law in 30 years. And today, the violent crime rate is at a 50-year low. We're also securing our border. Border crossings are lower today than when the previous administration left office. I've kept my commitment to appoint the first black woman to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. I also kept my commitment to have an administration that looks like America and be a president for all Americans. That's what I've done. I ran for president 4 years ago because I believed and still do that the soul of America was at stake. The very nature of who we are was at stake. And that's still the case. America's an idea. An idea stronger than any army, bigger than any ocean, more powerful than any dictator or tyrant. It's the most powerful idea in the history of the world. That idea is that we hold these truths to be self-evident. We're all created equal, endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We've never fully lived up to it, to this sacred idea, but we've never walked away from it either. And I do not believe the American people will walk away from it now. In just a few months, the American people will choose the course of America's future. I made my choice. I've made my views known. I would like to thank our great Vice President Kamala Harris. She's experienced, she's tough, she's capable. She's been an incredible partner to me and a leader for our country. Now the choice is up to you, the American people. When you make that choice, remember the words of Benjamin Franklin hanging on my wall here in the Oval Office, alongside the busts of Dr. King and Rosa Parks and Cesar Chavez. When Ben Franklin was asked, as he emerged from the convention going on, whether the founders have given America a monarchy or republic, Franklin's response was, a republic, if you can keep it. A republic, if you can keep it. Whether we keep our republic is now in your hands. My fellow Americans, it's been the privilege of my life to serve this nation for over 50 years. Nowhere else on earth could a kid with a stutter, from modest beginnings in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, one day sit behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office as President of the United States. But here I am. That's what's so special about America. We're a nation of promise and possibilities, of dreamers and doers, of ordinary Americans doing extraordinary things. I've given my heart and my soul to our nation, like so many others. I've been blessed a million times in return with the love and support of the American people. I hope you have some idea how grateful I am to all of you. The great thing about America is here, kings and dictators do not rule, the people do. History is in your hands. The power is in your hands. The idea of America lies in your hands. We just have to keep faith, keep the faith, and remember who we are. We're the United States of America, and there's simply nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. So let's act together, preserve our democracy. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
Okay, so Joe Biden just gave an address to the nation, and I said that if he drops out, I said this obviously before he did, that we should all give him an ovation. If you can, a standing ovation. We can't get up because we're strapped in here, but go outside, go wherever you are, and now it's late at night, but record yourself, record your neighbors, give the brother a standing ovation. He did the right thing. So no, listen, hear me out. So nobody wanted him to leave the race more than I did. And we fought like hell for 10 months to make that happen, and it happened. But there's a giant difference whether you do the right thing or you don't do the right thing at the end. So should he have done it earlier? Sure, of course, no one believed that more than I did. But when push came to shove, Donald Trump would not let go of power, even when he lost an election and it was over. He did a fake elector scheme, which I think was a coup against America. Joe Biden, yes, he was tested, and yes, it seemed like for a long time he wasn't gonna pass that test, but he did. With enough time left, he left the race and he let go of power. And so he mentioned there, country's much more important than personal ambition. And again, if you were frustrated as I was that it took a long time to get there, but the bottom line, brothers and sisters, is he got there. And this felt like, and you look at the speech, and I'm just trying to be positive here, but even the speech confirms that it was the right decision. It felt a little bit like House of Dragons, I think Viserys Targaryen handing it off to his daughter, but in this case, the vice president. And you could tell, he should have. And thank you for doing that. Thank you as a nation and as a party and as average American voters for stepping it down, stepping aside, putting your ego aside. I know that there was a lot of pressure to do that. I'm not at all naive about that. I'm one of the people who created that pressure. But at the end, when you do the right thing, when it matters most, you gotta give credit. So credit where credit is due. Thank you, President Biden.
So I'll play bad cop because regardless of Biden making the right decision in the final hour, I can't ever stand up and applaud a guy who aided and abetted the slaughter that's currently taking place in Gaza right now. So good that Biden finally realized that he's actually sacrificing the Democratic Party, leading to division within the Democratic Party by refusing to drop out of the race. He did so, again, like more than a month after that disastrous debate performance, thus robbing Kamala Harris, who's now the presumptive Democratic nominee, incredibly important and precious time to campaign, to fundraise, to do what's necessary to beat their political opponent, Donald Trump. And so, yes, I get it. I understand that urge, and you're not doing this, Cenk, to be fair. I understand that urge to engage in what we're seeing all over social media with all of these lawmakers, on their hands and knees, like praying to Joe Biden, making him out to be some sort of messiah. I refuse to engage in that. He did the right thing late, if you ask me, but that also doesn't erase the horrific policies that he was willing to co-sign before he dropped out of the race, before that disastrous debate performance. All of that stuff still exists. A few important things to point out about the speech. He made clear that he is not going to resign as president. You've had Republican lawmakers urging him to resign, arguing that, well, if he can't run a campaign, well, then he shouldn't be running the country. That's a little different, right? Running a campaign, attempting to win as president or re-election as president would mean that he thinks that he could serve another 4 years. Clearly, Joe Biden can't. He also said something that I do agree with, which is he needed to drop out and unify his party, the Democratic Party. And that clearly has happened. So he gets credit for that. He also took credit for a bunch of policies that he didn't actually accomplish, including lowering prescription drug prices. But look, I get it. He wants to go out with a bang. He wants to go out by bragging about what he allegedly accomplished during his presidency. It is what it is. But I would never stand up and give him a standing ovation.
Yeah, but Anna, so look, you don't have to convince me of the downsides of Joe Biden. So I, was very adamant against his policy in Gaza, a lot of lip service, but at the end, funding the atrocities that happened in Gaza and never really breaking from not just Israel, but Benjamin Netanyahu. And I think that he would have actually helped our ally Israel more if he had broken with Netanyahu and not funded the atrocities that happened there. I think that people pretend he's FDR 2.0 and as if he was enormously progressive and got his whole agenda passed. No, he got about 15% of his agenda passed, and of that, the great majority was money going to corporations first, and then eventually we hope a little bit to the American people. But he had good positive things that others were not able to accomplish: climate change legislation, 15% minimum tax on corporations. We've talked about the upsides and the downsides. So I'm not here to rewrite history and tell you he was God's gift to populism and the average American, etc., as a lot of Democratic propagandists does. And I'm certainly not going to say that he did this perfectly voluntarily. Of course he had to be pushed, and pushed very, very significantly. It was not an easy task. But having said that, when you're in the middle of that push, I believe in carrots and sticks. I believe in doing correct political strategy, okay? So the stick was, if you don't get out of the race, A, you're going to lose, B, you're going to be humiliated, C, you're going to lose the thing that you potentially care most about, your legacy. Okay, so I acknowledge all those things. Of course, I told you those things. Those were the sticks and they were correct. The carrot was, but if you do drop out, the deal is bygones be bygones. And so I'm delivering on that deal here. It is bygones be bygones. We have enough time. I told you earlier in the live show today that I now think Kamala Harris has gone from 50-50 to being the favorite. So we went from a near zero chance to being the favorites now to defeat Donald Trump. because of the one decision that Joe Biden had to make and ultimately did make, which was to step down.
I will give credit for one thing in regard to when he decided to step down from the presidential race. He could have made the decision to do it prior to the Republican National Convention. He didn't do that because had he done that and had it been clear at that time that Kamala Harris would be the presumptive Democratic nominee, well, the RNC would have played out very differently and they would have focused their attention on attacking Kamala Harris. Biden's timing deprived Republicans of being able to do that. So if that was in fact intentional, I guess well played.
No, definitely not intentional. He waited to the last possible moment.
Okay, then,
but it's okay.
Then I take it away.
No. But at the end, it wound up being helpful. It wound up being helpful. It doesn't matter why. It wound up being helpful. So I agree with you that that was terrific, whether it was intended or not. So look, last things I'll say is, at the DNC, he is going to get thunderous applause, right? And so I would say, hey, since he made the right decision, great, wonderful. Anna would say, we're both right. Yeah, but a little overhyped, and don't tell me that he was this magnanimous guy when we saw the process. But remember, history won't remember any of that. Well, the only thing they'll remember is that he stepped aside. And they won't remember that it took this long. They'll remember it a little bit, but we have 4 months left. It's plenty of time. So it's just, I cannot emphasize enough how overwhelming it is that he made the right decision at the end. So because it goes from Trump's gonna be president and God knows what happens, to now Trump is likely to not be president. It's just, that decision could not be larger.
I would not say likely. It's now a competitive race as opposed to a race that was not at all competitive when Biden was running against Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Okay. And one other thing I'll note is, look, Nancy Pelosi apparently went to Biden and his staff and said, look, we can do this the easy way, and I'm gonna give you about 3 weeks of the easy way. After that, we could do this the hard way. And Biden made his decision before Nancy Pelosi engaged in the hard way.
No, I'm aware of all of that. And so, but I will down credit where credit is due to Nancy Pelosi, a person I've criticized endless times. And I often mocked this whole idea that she was a master legislator. But you know what? When push came to shove and the country was on the line, Nancy Pelosi did a brilliant job of organizing things behind the scenes to get Biden to make the right decision. She also used carrots and sticks. Actually, I think this was her finest hour. I've never seen her do strategy better than this.
I agree.
And she galvanized others that are so important in the party, like Barack Obama, yes, the donors, unfortunately, and other representatives. She kept people from supporting Biden too enthusiastically, which is their normal inclination. So, and who made a bigger difference than Joe Biden dropping out? Me running a desperate primary against him, you guys doing the petitions, etc. I think you guys made a giant difference. And I talk about how important it was that you tried to make a difference, and it worked. It worked, and now we have hope. And you were right. But our job is to be honest. Nancy Pelosi made a much larger difference. And so Pelosi had as big a hand in this as anyone. And I don't say that in a negative light. I say it in an enormously positive light, because she normally sticks with the establishment and she normally would have circled the wagons. But seeing that reality that they were going to lose, and that they were going to lose the House as well, that she cares so much about, she rallied the troops to do the right thing when it's easier for us, we're on the outside, when it was very difficult for her on the inside. Also give credit to Barack Obama, David Axelrod, James Carville, Ezra Klein, Nate Silver, Charlemagne the God, Jon Stewart, all these people who were instrumental in making the push. And then finally, of course, to Joe Biden for at least getting there. And again, one last time, Scranton, he gives that speech, and I've told you guys 100 times, come on, Joe, you've been in Washington for the last 50, 60 years. This whole play, this theater of how you're regular Joe from Scranton, I just never found it to be credible. But tonight, as he's stepping down and passing the torch, as he said, when he talked about his roots all the way in the beginning and how he was a little kid in Scranton, And it's true, he was not born into a rich family. He was not born into a powerful or connected family. And for that little kid to be behind the Resolute desk, for the first time, that landed for me. And it landed for me because he was being magnanimous and he was doing the right thing. So when you do that, then I say, attaboy, Joe, and thank you for doing what you did. I thank you on behalf of the voters, the average Americans, the Democratic Party, and the country.
Cool.
All right, so there you have it. That's our analysis. We love you guys. We're gonna see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.